My family will never fight over money. I'm too young to think about a will. It is so uncomfortable to talk about money with family. These are some common beliefs that we all have. Money and property can spark a lot of tension in a family if it's not openly discussed and planned. Welcome to Heart of Money with Soumya. I'm Soumya Panda, an investment advisor for the last 20 years. And now I'm bringing to you conversations around things that make money a taboo topic. We are about to explore how money can both unite and divide families. Today I'm honored to introduce to you Tanvi Gandhi. She is a solicitor and an advocate with Markan Gandhi and Company, a 50-year-old legal firm that specializes in wills, probates, family disputes and settlements, succession planning and HUFs. Tanvi, thank you so much for joining me today on this conversation.
Thank you for having me, Soumya.
I would love to know, how did you get into this space and how long have you been doing this?
So, our firm was actually founded by my dad over 52 years ago in 1972. This was before I was born. So, as a kid growing up, I saw him. I used to go to office from school, and I was always enamored by the way things went about in office, the kind of respect he got. So, I always wanted to do this. And straight after school, I started going to office just as an intern. So, it's been over 30, 40 years now that I have been doing this.
And how did you get into this space of, family law, family disputes, settlements, wills, probates, etc.?
So initially, I actually wanted to do counsel practice. That's basically arguing in court.
Okay.
But then in my office, there were a lot of these family disputes, a lot of property-related matters, and sitting with my dad for those meetings, and I found it very, very interesting. And I thought it was very, very satisfying the way people came and thanked you, and to actually be able to do some good for the society. It really interested me. So eventually I did get into that.
So in your experience, and you must have seen so many families coming to your office, what are the main causes of dispute in a family around money?
So I would say essentially inheritance. See, we are not as forward in our thinking, especially in rural India. There is no estate planning. There are no wills made. Now, of course, things have changed to a great extent, especially post-COVID, things have changed. But otherwise, there is a lack of communication. People are not open to talking, openly about estate planning or discussing finances for that matter.
Family finances, family money.
Yes, also division of property. A lot of the businesses in our country are family businesses, right? So you have various partnership firms where there are, the brothers are partners. So it goes okay at that level. And then you have the next generation and the next generation.
Yeah.
And that those thoughts don't match, right? It's a different thought process in the younger generation. So there are a lot of disputes there in those family partnerships and, the division of the firms, the division of the businesses. So these are a few of the issues that you do face.
So you obviously have dealt mostly with Indian families, right?
Yes.
So what distinguishes Indian family disputes versus what would be happening in another region? And how is it that our culture, tradition and societal norms, how does that influence these families' conversations around money?
So basically, the beliefs are totally different, right, from abroad. Our conditioning of the mind right from childhood is different. In a lot of families, the daughters don't have a right to speak. The elders are always supposed to be obeyed. The younger, even if it is a son, the younger sons would not have a say, or whatever your father would say, that's how it would be, your properties would be divided or the family businesses would be divided. So that is a big challenge. Of course, laws have changed to a great extent, but the mindset necessarily has not changed to that extent. Of course, it's getting better, but that awareness is very, very necessary. Daughters don't speak up at all, right? I mean, although legally they do have a right, Many times they don't get anything, and none of the daughters would speak up.
And it's not only about the daughters, right? Even the sons, like you
Yes,
said, if you're
yes,
the younger
yes.
son,
Yeah.
you are expected to be
Listening
submissive.
to, yes,
Yeah.
you are expected to listen to your elder brother or your father or your uncle for that matter.
And it's very hush-hush, like people don't really sit together
Nobody.
and talk
Yes.
openly about,
Yes.
about money.
Yes.
It's not like a dinner table
Yeah.
conversation ever.
Yeah, and even if they do sit, it's only a chosen few of the family who would sit and make the decisions. Everybody else is just told that this is how it's going to happen, and they don't necessarily have a say in it, you know. So I have seen quite a few families where, you know, they are in a joint family, right? In fact, I had a situation recently where the husband passed away, and the father-in-law came to me to figure out how to safeguard the daughter-in-law and all. And the daughter-in-law comes and tells me, like after the father-in-law left the chamber, the daughter-in-law came back in and told me, please make sure that me and my children are safeguarded, because I don't know what is going to happen. I don't know anything about the wealth of the family. I don't know anything about what my husband's share would have been. So please ensure. And she literally, I mean, it was so sad, you know, that in today's world, well-to-do, educated woman, and she still had no clue about any finances.
Yeah.
So that's how it is in a lot of families.
Earlier, our family structures were such that most of it was driven by the patriarch of the family.
Yes.
But now you must be seeing that scenario changing, especially when clients are coming and talking to you about family settlements, family distributions, etc. Have you noticed
Yes,
a change?
There is a massive change, especially post-COVID. People are more aware, I feel. People are more open to having discussions. We have more people coming in to make wills. We have a lot of younger people, in fact, coming and asking, you know. See, the whole idea of making wills, people always had this idea that, oh, I'm only 30, I don't need to make a will, right?
Yeah.
You only make a will when you are like 50 or whatever. So I'm
50
too
bhi
young.
nahi, like
Yeah,
75.
maybe later.
Yeah.
And if you asked your parents to make a will, it was like, oh my God, you know, you want me to die. Why would you want me to make a will?
Yeah.
But all of that has changed. It has, you know, become way better. Even before making the wills, people will come and tell you, is there anything I should do to get the division, you know, easier? Maybe before making a will, should we do a family arrangement? So sometimes that may be necessary. You know, you make a will along with a family arrangement, so that everything is taken care of, you know, in terms of estate planning.
When you say estate planning, people will immediately think you're just talking about property planning. But what comes under estate planning?
Estate planning is a much wider term. It would include not only your money, it would include your property. Property would mean not only your immovable property, as in your flats or your lands or your bungalows or whatever, but also your movables. You may have mutual funds, you may have shares, you may have money, jewelry, all of that it would entail. Also your businesses, your partnership firms. There are shares in private limited companies which are running your family businesses or other businesses. So all of that, it's very important to plan, because what happens is sometimes, so far as division is concerned, later on after somebody passes away, if you have like 3 children, imagine leaving one house or 10 shares to 3 children. Because if you've not made a will, 3 of them will share it. And if one of them wants to sell it and the other 2 don't, it becomes a big issue.
Yes.
So it's very important to get everything sorted, have a will in place, have some kind of an arrangement in place where everybody is aware and okay with, you know.
So a family arrangement is a part of estate planning?
Yes, of course.
So it's like a internal document that is signed by everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Is there some law that makes you have to obey that agreement? No, right? It's just an understanding.
No, it's an understanding, but you can't get out of it, right? It is, you can go to court and say, this is what we have agreed. So it's difficult to get out of it.
Okay, because everybody has signed and agreed.
Yes.
Now you can't come in.
It's very difficult to get
challenge
out of
it.
Yes.
Oh, okay. You spoke about wills and family arrangements, estate planning, etc. This sounds like rich people's problem, right? But if we were to talk about a normal family, you know, for them, what are the essential things that they should do to ensure that they never come to a place where they're discussing disputes, settlements, etc.?
So even for a normal family or a normal person who really doesn't have much, even then a will is necessary. Because what happens is a lot of the times there are children involved.
Yeah.
And having a minor inherit your property becomes very, very difficult. Even if you have one flat, if you want to sell a minor's share, if you've not left a will and it goes to a minor, then for your spouse eventually to sell that property is very difficult, because you have to go to court to take permission to sell a minor's share.
So it becomes more
Yes,
complicated?
yes, because you are going to end up incurring expense, time, all of it. You go to court, it's an expense, right? It doesn't come cheap.
So what are the fundamental steps that families should implement to ensure that they avoid the risk of any kind of dispute around money and property, etc.?
So I would say open discussions, come around to a proper settlement so far as division is concerned. As far as possible, do the division. Like we had a case where two brothers were involved in everything together, and then they had sons who are now, of course, old and have their own children. So you have 3 generations, joint businesses, joint houses. So you have one brother staying in a house which is in the name of the other brother, and his son staying in the house which is in the name of his cousin, and the businesses are together. And then obviously as the generations move on, there are issues, and your wavelength is not the same, and it's always better to settle that. So even before things get dirty or murky, people do come for advice, and then you help them settle things equally, and we have them enter into an MOU and then do the definitive documents while things are great, while your relationship is in place. Also, what happens is when you have these things divided, while things are good, it's much easier. You are not going into court, you're mentally in a better space. See, in our country, a lot of the times the males who are involved, and then what happens is you're living in a joint family at home, you're working together, the brothers are working, and then they go home and the wives come in, or the sisters have properties, you go home and the husbands come in, and it's a mess, because there's spousal pressure, there is elders pressure. So it's always better when there are multiple things to sort it out before the next generation really gets in, or before disputes, even in the same generation, before any disputes start creeping in.
So approach this topic when everything is happy and peaceful within a family.
And if you are at that stage in a position to divide, that's another thing. Sometimes you may not be in a position to divide, So then at least enter into some kind of a settlement that everybody knows that eventually this is how it's going to be.
The direction of how this is going to flow.
At least understand that. Yes.
What are the kind of emotions that you've seen that come up in these kind of discussions? This is proactive, this is forward. But I'm sure there are emotions, whether it's a wife, whether it's two brothers, whether it's the father.
So a lot of the times, we have situations where the sons are not ready to open up in front of the elders. It may be the father, it may be the uncle or whatever. And a lot of the times it's the other way around. So parents sometimes are too scared to open up in front of the children. So we've had situations where we've had to ask the children to step out, because at that age, see, parents are dependent, right? So there's that fear, there's that insecurity. Oh, if I don't give this son because he's staying with me, he's not going to take care of me. So that fear is there. And a lot of the times the parents have retired, right? So they, apart from what they already have, they don't have a separate source of income. And they don't have anybody else to take care of them. So that's a fear. So they don't want to be open about it, and discuss it in front of the children, because if they want to give something to one child and not to the other, it becomes a problem. At the same time, sometimes the parents are so dominating that the children are scared to talk in front of them. So they want to then come and talk separately. So a lot of the times, I think our job also entails counseling to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's like almost give therapy.
Yes, to a certain extent, you have to sit and make them understand that eventually, if you don't do this now, it's going to be deeper trouble for you. And if you get into litigation, if your children get into litigation, you're just leaving them with nothing good.
What is a will? What does it help us? To what point does it help us, and what are its limitations?
So a will is essentially like the word itself means, it is the testator or the person who makes the will is known as a testator. It is a testator's will or desire, or it is basically how the person wants his or her properties, assets, estate to be divided after the person is gone. Sometimes people have a lot of misunderstanding that once I make a will, I can't change it. But that is not so. You can change your will 1,000,000 times till you are alive and till you are in a proper sense of understanding. You can also make what is known as an addition to a will, which is a codicil. It's known as a codicil. So the rest of your will remains and you make a certain change, one change or two changes or an addition. So that also you can do. And essentially your will is a piece of paper till you pass away.
So it doesn't have to be some fancy legal document.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Where it's costing me a lot of money.
No, it doesn't.
I don't need to register it.
No.
I don't necessarily need a lawyer doing it for me.
No. So, of course, I would advise that you go to a lawyer because there are a lot of nitty-gritties, that go with the will. See, the essentials of a will are you need to have 2 witnesses.
Okay.
And you need to just put in who you want to give your property to. You need to have executors. It could be 1, it could be 2. So the executor is basically somebody who you implicitly trust, who will take your will forward after you pass away, who will apply for the probate and who will divide the properties as per your will or your desire. So these are the couple of necessary things that you need to put. Of course, you can do it sitting at home. At the same time, I would not recommend it because there is a lot of thought process that goes into making a will.
Even for a simple common man?
Yes, it is always advisable to go to a lawyer for the simple reason that you may have one house, right? But if you are going to leave it to 3 children, like I said, division is a problem. So we would advise that you give them a right of purchase of the other person's share, or you put in a clause to sell the premises. There are various ways of working out a way to avoid disputes in future. So it is always advisable to go to a lawyer. Having said that, if you really can't afford one, just write it on a piece of paper, have 2 witnesses sign it, and
keep it.
Decide, wherever you want to give, whoever you want to give your property to.
When does a probate come into this?
So what happens is after the death of the testator, the will needs to be probated, which is a process which is done by a district court, and here, of course, in Bombay, it is the High Court that does that.
So all wills
all wills need to be probated. Apart from, there are some exceptions under the Succession Act. So apart from that, all the wills need to be probated, which is a process which is done through the High Court.
So when I'm going to a bank to change the holder's name, or when I'm going to a housing society to transfer the name in which the flat is based on the will, they will ask for a probate?
Yes. But see, what happens in a society or in a bank for that matter, we have what is known as a nomination which is filed.
Yeah.
Right? So for the purpose of the bank and for the purpose of the society, the flat or the account is transferred to the nominee.
Oh, so the will stands null and void?
But that's where the catch is. And a lot of people have this misunderstanding that, I am a nominee and the flat is transferred to my name or the amount is transferred to my name, so I am the owner. But that is not so. A nominee is always a trustee for the actual legatees or the
custodian.
heirs. Yes, you are a custodian or a trustee. You are holding it in trust for the people who are actually entitled to it.
And who decides who are
entitled? That would be in the will, or if you have not made a will, you go by intestate succession.
Can you share some insight on trusts? Who is it more applicable for? And what kind of circumstances should people look at trusts?
So, a lot of people think that it's necessary to have trust only if you have a lot of money. But I would not say that that is correct, because even if you have a minor child, you might want to have a trust which you make in your will. Because of course, if something were to happen to you while the child is still a minor, or even for that matter 20, 25, they do not have the maturity to deal with the kind of money that might come into their hands, or even a little bit of money. So in your will also, you can make a trust to say that, so-and-so person will be the trustee, and all my estate or all my money would go into a trust, and that trustee has to be a person who you implicitly trust, of course, would provide for the child till a certain age. It could be any age that you feel comfortable with. It could be 20, 25, 18, 30, 40. So we have had cases where people have made wills to say that there will be a trust and a certain part of my property would go to my child at a certain age, and then after another 5 years a further part, and then after another 5 years. So they are given a certain limited amount of money or property at every stage of their life, which would take care of whatever they need. Even for a normal person with not much, if they have a minor child.
So young couples should consider a trust along with the will if they have children.
In the will itself, you can make a trust.
So when you're discussing these kind of things with families, which is around death and which is around who gets how much, what are the root causes of discomfort or dispute that you would identify?
So a lot of the times it's ego. It's conditioning of the mind to a great extent. Our values are different. It's a conservative thought process sometimes. Of course, that has changed, but in a lot of families, that is still there.
So in these kind of discussions, your true beliefs and patterns actually
they do
show
come
up.
out. Yeah, a lot of the times they do come out. Your daughter is not capable of handling a business, so my business has to go to my eldest son. Things like that do come out. And communication not open, not transparent, which has to be.
Yeah. So actually families should be taught how to talk about money without feeling angry at each other.
Yes. A lot of the times what happens is your own wife does not know about what you have. Or somebody may pass away suddenly and the people who are left behind don't know anything.
They don't even know where to go to look.
They don't know. So even in your will, we advise that you put in all your assets in detail. So the people after you or your executor doesn't have to go fumbling. We have had people take a year and a half trying to find out what properties they have. And even after the probate is done, you suddenly find one dividend coming in and you realize, oh my God, these shares were there. Like it could be one share, But these things do happen.
There's a huge gap here where families can be actually counseled or taught how to converse about money and how to be about money with family at least.
Absolutely.
Like give and take and let go.
A lot of the times that is there, it's not all bad. We have come across families where, the siblings are happy to give the other siblings. I have in fact come across a family. So there are 3 sisters and there was one brother. The brother has passed away and the wife is alone. All the 3 sisters are happily giving everything to the wife because she's a widow, she doesn't have a child. So you have, there are a lot of positive things. It's not always all bad. But even for a family like that, you need to work things out. You need to make necessary documents to have that one person, have all the properties or have all the assets or money or whatever it is. There is stuff that needs to be done, planning that needs to be done. And that can only happen if you sit as a family, you discuss money, you discuss how you want to go about with it.
So family and money is a complicated thing.
Of course. Yeah. And it doesn't work without transparent conversation. An inclusive conversation.
That's conversation.
More important than anything else.
I've noticed many times in a family, you might be having businesses and various accounts, and the woman of the family is just made to sign documents.
Yes.
At times she's made to sign as a director, times as a partner. She's made to sign some checks, some board resolutions. How do you think this can come back and hit her in the wrong way?
This is the scariest thing because being a partner, you're just blindly signing. It's unlimited liability, right? If something were to go downhill, you will lose your own personal property. You sign a check if somebody tells you to blindly, without knowing what is in your account. There'll be a 138 complaint. You can go behind bars. It's a criminal offense when you don't have money and you're signing checks. So these kind of things do happen, because that's, in a lot of families, that's the way things work. The woman just signs blindly. But they shouldn't. And they have to speak up and they have to be aware of what they're signing. So we had this one client whose husband had taken loans and she signed as a personal guarantor. So there was a personal guarantee signed. And then things went downhill between the two of them and they were getting divorced. And she was still stuck with that personal guarantee. So whatever property of hers she did have, which was independently her property, there was a fear of that property going because the husband was unable to pay the loan. In spite of having, a divorce. So all these kind of things do happen.
Also, if there's any misconduct in the business
Yes,
where you're
yes,
a director and
you're
you're signing,
you are in trouble because all these siphoning of monies, etc., are all criminal offences.
or any tax,
Tax,
evasion.
yes. And you are unaware of everything, you have just blindly signed, but that doesn't make you any less liable or responsible, right?
So ask the right questions before
Yes.
signing
and be
anything.
aware of what you're signing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tanvi, for coming,
Thank you for
sparing
having
time.
me.
I know how busy you are. Thank you for having this chat with me.
It's been great sitting and chatting with you. Thank you so much.